Ursula von der Leyen's political journey did not begin in the grand halls of Berlin, but in the regional government of Lower Saxony. In 2003, she was appointed as the Minister for Social Affairs, Women, Family and Health. This was her first major political role, and she immediately approached it with a unique blend of empathy and data-driven precision. She was not a typical politician who relied only on rhetoric. Instead, she studied the problems facing families, the elderly, and the healthcare system with the detailed eye of a doctor, which she was by training. Her goal was to understand the root causes of social issues before proposing solutions, a method that quickly set her apart from her peers and captured the attention of leaders far beyond the state capital of Hanover. Her work in Lower Saxony was fundamentally about putting people first. She believed that strong societies were built on the foundation of healthy, stable families and accessible social services. She looked at issues like childcare not merely as a family matter, but as a critical piece of economic infrastructure. If parents, especially mothers, could not find reliable care for their children, they could not fully participate in the workforce. This, she argued, was a loss for everyone. Her policies were therefore designed to be practical and effective, aiming to deliver real, measurable improvements in people's daily lives rather than just making political statements to win votes. This focus on tangible outcomes was a hallmark of her early career. This pragmatic and human-centered approach did not go unnoticed. In Berlin, Angela Merkel, then leader of the opposition Christian Democratic Union, was watching closely. Merkel was searching for new talent to help modernize the Conservative Party, and von der Leyen seemed to be the perfect fit. Here was a woman who embodied a new kind of conservatism, one that was compassionate, modern, and focused on solving real-world problems. Von der Leyen's ability to talk about social policy with both heart and intellect impressed Merkel. She saw in von der Leyen a politician who could connect with a broader range of voters and help steer the CDU into the 21st century with fresh ideas. The connection between the two women was built on mutual respect and a shared vision for a more modern Germany. Von der Leyen's success in Lower Saxony provided a blueprint for how the CDU could tackle social issues nationally. She demonstrated that one could be a conservative while also championing progressive family policies and a strong social safety net. This alignment of values and goals laid the groundwork for her eventual move to the national stage. Her time in regional politics was more than just a stepping stone. It was the laboratory where she developed the political philosophy that would define her career and eventually propel her to the very top of European leadership. When Angela Merkel became Chancellor in 2005, one of her first and most significant appointments was bringing Ursula von der Leyen to Berlin as the Federal Minister for Family Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women, and Youth. This role was a natural extension of her work in Lower Saxony, but on a much larger and more influential scale. Germany at the time was facing a demographic challenge with one of the lowest birth rates in Europe. Von der Leyen was tasked with reversing this trend and making Germany a more family-friendly country. She arrived in the capital with a clear vision and a determination to challenge the old ways of thinking about family, work, and gender roles in German society. Her flagship policy was a revolutionary reform of parental leave. Before her, parental leave benefits were low and often taken almost exclusively by mothers, reinforcing traditional household structures. Von der Leyen introduced a new system called Elterngeld, or parental allowance, which paid parents a significant portion of their previous income, up to 67%, to stay home with a newborn child for up to 14 months. Crucially, 2 of these months were reserved specifically for the second parent, almost always the father. This daddy months provision was a deliberate effort to encourage men to take an active role in early childcare and to shift cultural norms about parenting duties. This policy was about more than just money. It was a profound social statement. Von der Leyen argued that supporting families was an investment in the country's future. By enabling both parents to share childcare responsibilities without facing severe financial penalties, the government could help women return to their careers more easily and encourage couples to have more children. She also pushed for a massive expansion of state-funded daycare centers for children under the age of 3, directly challenging the West German tradition that a mother's place was in the home. She wanted to give parents a genuine choice about how to balance work and family life. The impact of these reforms was significant and lasting. Over the following decade, the number of fathers taking parental leave skyrocketed, and the availability of childcare places greatly improved. While the birth rate did not dramatically increase overnight, her policies fundamentally changed the conversation about family in Germany. They signaled a move away from a rigid, conservative model toward a more flexible and equal one. Von der Leyen had successfully used her position to enact one of the most important social reforms of the Merkel era, proving that she was not just a thinker, but also an effective and transformative political leader. Ursula von der Leyen's modernizing agenda did not come without a fight. Her family-friendly policies, while popular with many younger Germans, drew sharp criticism from the more traditionalist wing of her own Conservative Party. Some influential members of the CDU and its Bavarian sister party, the CSU, were deeply uncomfortable with her vision. They accused her of undermining the traditional family model, where the father was the breadwinner and the mother was the primary caregiver. They pejoratively labeled her policies as a state-sponsored re-education program for parents, arguing that the government should not be interfering in the private decisions of families by incentivizing fathers to stay home. The criticism was often personal and intense. Opponents within her party privately dismissed her as a lightweight, a career mother whose privileged background made her unfit to understand the struggles of ordinary families. Because she herself came from a prominent political family and was a mother of 7 children, some argued she was trying to impose her own lifestyle on the rest of the country. They saw her advocacy for state-funded childcare as an attack on stay-at-home mothers, creating a false narrative that she valued working mothers more. It was a difficult and often lonely battle within her own political camp, testing her resolve and political skill. Despite the backlash, von der Leyen stood her ground with remarkable confidence and grace. She skillfully used data and evidence to counter the emotional arguments of her critics. At party conferences and in parliamentary debates, she calmly explained that her policies were not about ideology, but about pragmatism. Germany needed more skilled workers, and it could not afford to have highly educated women permanently leave the workforce after having children. She argued that supporting families was a pro-business, pro-economy stance, not a radical social experiment. Her ability to frame her progressive social agenda in the language of economic necessity was key to her success. Ultimately, she won the debate. Chancellor Angela Merkel provided crucial backing, shielding her from the most severe attacks and ensuring her reforms were passed into law. Von der Leyen's persistence paid off, and she emerged from the conflict with a reputation as a resilient and effective reformer who was not afraid to challenge the status quo, even within her own party. She proved that she had the political toughness to match her intellectual vision. This victory solidified her position as a leading figure in the CDU and demonstrated that she was a force for modernization who could overcome significant political obstacles to achieve her goals. After her successful and transformative tenure as Minister for Family Affairs, Ursula von der Leyen's profile on the national stage grew significantly. She had proven herself to be a capable and determined cabinet member, and Chancellor Merkel continued to entrust her with important responsibilities. In 2009, she was appointed Federal Minister of Labour and Social Affairs, a sprawling and complex ministry at the heart of Germany's powerful social market economy. This new role was a major promotion, putting her in charge of the nation's pension system, unemployment benefits, and labour market regulations. It was a testament to the trust she had earned and her reputation as a serious policy expert. In this powerful position, she continued her focus on creating a more inclusive and modern society. She worked to improve opportunities for the long-term unemployed and advocated for policies that would better integrate immigrants into the German labour market. One of her key initiatives was the push for a statutory minimum wage, a policy that was highly controversial within her own Conservative Party at the time. While the CDU had long opposed a national minimum wage, von der Leyen argued that it was a matter of fairness and social cohesion. She believed that work should provide a decent living and that a wage floor was necessary to protect the most vulnerable workers from exploitation. Her advocacy for a minimum wage once again put her at odds with conservative hardliners, but it showcased her willingness to adopt good ideas regardless of their political origin. She was building a reputation as a post-ideological politician, someone more interested in finding effective solutions than in adhering to strict party doctrine. While the final implementation of the minimum wage would happen under the subsequent government, her tireless work on the issue helped to shift the debate within the CDU and laid the essential groundwork for its eventual introduction. It was another example of her playing the long game, patiently building consensus for a major policy change. By 2013, von der Leyen was one of the most prominent and experienced ministers in the German government. She had successfully managed 2 major federal ministries, navigated complex political battles, and championed landmark social reforms. Her journey from the regional politics of Lower Saxony to the center of power in Berlin was complete. She had established herself as a key member of Angela Merkel's inner circle and a politician with a national following. She was seen as versatile, intelligent, and ambitious, a leader who was clearly destined for even greater challenges on the political horizon. Her next appointment would be the most surprising and demanding yet. In a move that honestly took everyone in the German political scene by surprise, Chancellor Angela Merkel appointed me, Ursula von der Leyen, as Germany's Federal Minister of Defense in December 2013. This was, well, a truly historic moment, since I became the very first woman to ever hold this position. The Ministry of Defense, which people often just call the Hardthuhr, had a reputation for being a tough, male-dominated institution. It was, frankly, seen as a graveyard for political careers, even for the most experienced politicians out there. Naturally, many observers were pretty skeptical. I didn't have a military background or any real experience in security policy, so my appointment was viewed as a major gamble by both my supporters and my critics. Initial reactions from inside the Bundeswehr, Germany's armed forces, were, pretty mixed. Some people welcomed the fresh perspective I might bring, but many others were wary of having a civilian with a background in social policy suddenly in command. They wondered if I could ever really understand the unique culture, challenges, and needs of the military. The German media was, as you might expect, full of commentary about whether I was truly suitable for the role. Some even dismissed me as just a token appointment. But I decided to confront these doubts head-on. I approached my new job with the same methodical diligence and determination that had defined my earlier career. Right away, I began an intensive period of study, meeting with generals, visiting troops, and really immersing myself in the complex world of defense. From the very beginning, I made it clear that my focus would be on the soldiers themselves. Drawing on my experience as Minister for Family Affairs, I declared my intention to make the Bundeswehr a more modern and attractive employer. I was honestly shocked to discover that military bases often lacked basic amenities like childcare facilities or flexible working arrangements for service members with families. I truly believed that if Germany expected its soldiers to risk their lives for the country, then the country had a duty to take care of them and their families. This people-first approach was, well, a pretty radical departure from the traditional focus on hardware and strategy. I championed initiatives to improve housing, healthcare, and support services for military families. I pushed for investments to make barracks more comfortable and modern, and I worked to create a more inclusive environment for all service members, no matter their gender or background. While some traditionalists in the military grumbled that I was trying to turn the army into a cozy-feel organization, my efforts were deeply appreciated by many of the younger soldiers and their families. What I was really signaling was a cultural shift, arguing that a modern military absolutely needs to care for its people if it wants to recruit and retain the best talent in the 21st century. While Ursula von der Leyen's focus on taking care of soldiers was praised by many, her time as defense minister also had big challenges and lots of disagreements. For years, the German military had not gotten enough money and was ignored. When she started, she took over a military that had serious problems with its gear. Stories came out about fighter jets that couldn't fly, submarines that couldn't sail, and soldiers using broomsticks instead of real guns during big military exercises because they didn't have the right equipment. These problems weren't her fault, but as the minister in charge, it was her job to fix them. She responded by fighting for and getting much bigger budgets for defense. Her goal was to completely update the armed forces, from replacing old planes and vehicles to putting money into new technologies like computer security. But Germany's very slow and complicated system for buying things turned out to be a huge problem. Changes were slow, and new equipment orders were often delayed for years, which made people inside the military and Germany's allies frustrated. People who criticized her said she couldn't handle the ministry's deep-rooted problems, and the news often talked about how the military wasn't ready. Along with these struggles to get new equipment, von der Leyen faced a big scandal about the ministry using outside helpers. An official investigation showed that contracts worth hundreds of millions of euros were given out without proper checking, leading to accusations of favoritism and bad management. Even though she was personally found not guilty of any wrongdoing, the scandal hurt her reputation and made people question how she managed the huge ministry. She had to speak in front of a group of lawmakers, where she defended her efforts to bring in outside experts to help update the old way of doing things. But the whole situation left a long shadow over her time as minister. Despite these disagreements, she kept pushing forward with her plans for change. She dealt with tough issues that those before her had ignored, like dealing with extreme right-wing views within the military and making things equal for men and women. She worked to get more women in the military and opened all jobs to them, trying to create a place where everyone felt respected and included. While her time at the Ministry of Defense was definitely the hardest part of her political career in Germany, she was also given credit for starting a necessary, though difficult, process to turn things around for the military and facing problems that had been left to get worse for far too long. Beyond the domestic challenges of modernizing the German military, Ursula von der Leyen used her position as defense minister to become a prominent and respected voice on the international stage. She was a staunch believer in the importance of strong transatlantic relations and a firm supporter of NATO. Especially after Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, she became one of Europe's most vocal advocates for a united and robust response to Russian aggression. She consistently argued that Germany needed to take on more responsibility for collective security, both within the alliance and in the wider world, marking a shift from Germany's post-war reluctance to engage in military matters. However, she also understood that the security landscape was changing. She believed that while NATO remained the cornerstone of European defense, the European Union needed to develop its own capacity to act independently when necessary. She became a leading champion for a stronger and more integrated European defense policy. She argued that European nations could achieve far more by pooling their resources and coordinating their military efforts than they could by acting alone. This was not about creating a European army to replace national militaries, but about building a more effective and efficient army of Europeans. She was a key architect of initiatives like the Permanent Structured Cooperation, or PESCO, a framework designed to enable willing EU member states to collaborate more closely on defense projects. She pushed for the creation of a European Defense Fund to finance joint research and development of new military technologies. Her vision was of a Europe that was a stronger and more capable security partner for the United States, not a rival. She often spoke of the need for strategic autonomy, the ability for Europe to act on its own to protect its interests in its neighborhood, a message that gained increasing traction among other EU leaders. Her articulate and passionate advocacy for a more unified European defense posture raised her profile significantly in Brussels and other European capitals. She became a familiar and trusted figure at international security conferences and meetings of defense ministers. Her colleagues saw her as a serious and forward-thinking leader who combined a commitment to the Atlantic Alliance with a pragmatic vision for Europe's future role in the world. This reputation as a dedicated European and a skilled international diplomat would prove to be critically important for the next unexpected chapter of her political career. In the summer of 2019, the leaders of the European Union were deadlocked. After the European Parliament elections, they were unable to agree on a candidate to become the next president of the European Commission. The main contenders, nominated through the Spitzenkandidat system, had all been rejected. As negotiations dragged on, a surprise compromise candidate emerged, Ursula von der Leyen. Nominated by French President Emmanuel Macron and supported by German Chancellor Angela Merkel, she was seen as someone who could bridge divides between different political groups and national interests. Her name had not been on any of the initial lists, making her selection a genuine political shock. Her path to confirmation was far from certain. Because she had not been a lead candidate in the election, many members of the European Parliament felt that her nomination undermined the democratic process. She had just a few weeks to convince a skeptical and divided Parliament to support her. She embarked on an intense campaign, meeting with all the major political groups to lay out her vision for Europe. She promised an ambitious agenda focused on tackling climate change, boosting Europe's digital economy, and strengthening the EU's geopolitical role. It was a high-stakes race against time to build a majority from scratch. The confirmation vote in July 2019 was incredibly tense and went down to the wire. In the end, she won the support of the Parliament by a razor-thin margin of just 9 votes. It was a fragile victory, but a victory nonetheless. On that day, she made history, becoming the first woman ever to be elected President of the European Commission, the powerful executive body of the European Union. Her narrow win meant she would have to work constantly to build and maintain broad coalitions to pass her agenda, but she accepted the challenge with her characteristic determination. In her acceptance speech, she outlined a bold and forward-looking vision. She committed to making the European Green Deal her top priority, with the goal of making Europe the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. She spoke of a geopolitical commission that would act more assertively on the world stage, and she pledged to defend the rule of law and democratic values within the Union. Her ascent to the presidency was a testament to her political resilience and her reputation as a bridge builder. The woman who started in regional politics in Lower Saxony was now in one of the most powerful positions in the world. As president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen quickly proved herself to be a decisive leader. She took office in December 2019, and just a few months later, she was confronted with the unprecedented global crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic. She led the EU's collective response, coordinating the joint procurement of vaccines for all member states and launching a massive economic recovery fund called Next Generation EU. This €750 billion plan, financed by common EU debt, was a historic step towards greater European integration and solidarity. It was a bold move that demonstrated her ability to lead Europe through its darkest moments with a vision for a stronger shared future. Her presidency has been defined by her ambitious agenda. The European Green Deal remains the central pillar of her work, driving a massive transformation of the continent's economy and society towards sustainability. She has also championed a digital transition, pushing for new regulations for tech giants and investments in Europe's technological sovereignty. As promised, she has steered a more geopolitical commission, taking a strong stance against Russia's invasion of Ukraine, imposing tough sanctions, and providing extensive support for Kiev. Her leadership during these crises has solidified her role as a key player on the global stage, often acting as the primary voice for a united Europe. Her persistence and determination have become her trademarks. She has navigated deep divisions among the 27 member states on issues ranging from energy policy to migration, constantly working to find compromise and forge consensus. Her leadership style is often described as focused and hands-on, deeply involved in the details of policy. In November 2024, her steady hand during a tumultuous first term was rewarded when the European Parliament endorsed her for a second term, securing her role at the helm of the EU until 2029. Her journey, which began with a focus on family policy in Germany, had culminated in her leading the entire European family of nations. From the state government of Lower Saxony to the presidency of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen's career is a story of breaking barriers and exceeding expectations. She has consistently taken on difficult jobs, challenged established norms, and pushed for a more modern, united, and forward-looking Europe. Through her work on social reform, military modernization, and now European integration, she has shown a remarkable capacity for growth and leadership. Facing down crises and controversies with resilience, she has firmly established herself as one of the most consequential and influential leaders of her generation, shaping the future of the continent.